So how does Rob Araujo pull off these chords? These are all out of the key center, E, but he uses a common note, B, to keep all of these chords related to each other. This is one of Rob's favorite techniques found throughout his music. It's also a technique used by Robert Glasper. Holding one note in place allows you to change all the harmonies below it. So in some cases, you can't functionally describe what's going on in these chord progressions. Rob Araujo's home is built on this harmonic progression, and we will see some of these progressions are functional and some are not. Before we dive in, make sure you check out Rob Araujo if you haven't already, of course. In this video, we're going to be focusing on chords in two parts. The first part deals with the beat section, and the second part is an exclusive look at the original MIDI that Rob himself was kind enough to let me use and share with you guys. So, stay tuned for that. What do Rob's chords make you feel, and what/whom do they remind you of? Let me know down in the comments. Okay, so here's part one. The first four chords are similar to descending down from the fourth degree of the E major scale down to 1. So 4, 3, 2, 1. So 4, 3, 2, and then 1. But instead, the melody allows us to extend to some other chords that are not in the key of E. Instead of the 2, you play this chord, which is a D major 9, and it leads to a C sharp minor 9. And so the melody here is actually acting as the 9th of those chords. Here these chords are descending down with the melody. That's 4 and 3. 4, 3. And instead of 2, 1, it's actually flat 7. Right? D major 9 is not in the key. And then C sharp minor 9, where the melody lands here on the E flat. Then that phrase repeats once again, but except with a twist. This chord right here is an F sharp 7, sharp 9, sharp 5. And it leads to a B13. This F sharp 7, sharp 9, sharp 5 acts as a dominant chord to the B sus. Or something similar to that. But the B sus does not lead to a 1. The B sus would be the 5 of E, but instead it leads to an A. So the next phrase is basically 4, 3, 2, 1 in the key of E. It's also tied to the single note B. See how we're connecting with those chords? Now those chords are in the key of E, right? 4, 3, 2, 1, but B is solidifying that drone in this song. The next thing that comes is the signature 2-5 turnaround in Neo Soul. It's basically a combination of a 2-5-1 turnaround in minor and a 2-5 turnaround in major, and you get this cool effect where you're expecting minor, but you actually end up with major, and it's a lot of brightness compared to the minor. Here's a 2-5-1 turnaround in C sharp minor. Here's the same thing, but with an altered 5. Here's the same thing. It's a 2-5-1, but the 1 is now going to be a major and not a minor. You see that brightness, right? Now let's do a 2-5-1 where the 5 is altered and the 1 is a major 9 at 6. Here's Rob's melody and that same chord progression. Now, to put it in the context of E major, it sounds out of place, it sounds very bright, it sounds exciting actually, and that's Neo Soul. Alright, so the next phrase is basically the same as the beginning. next part is what leads us into the bridge. We're going to be using the constant note B to lead us into the bridge, and you'll see. Let me do that again. And so what we did there was an A major 7 or A major 9. We go down to an E, add 2 or E9 over its third, which is a G sharp. So and we're going to keep this note constant, and that leads us into the bridge. Right, so the bridge starts up with a D sus13 chord, and we play around with that voicing between D sus and C sus13. We throw in that B major 9 at the end of the phrase. That's a very neo soul sound, and Rob loves throwing in those chords just randomly, just to throw you off. Then we repeat the phrase. Then we go into an F major 9, and then an E7 sharp 9 sharp 5. Or I think it's just an E7 sharp 9. Then we repeat that again. So that E7 sharp 9 doesn't really go anywhere. It only goes back to the verse, but when we repeat it again, we're going back to the D sus13. So this does not lead to this, but Rob did it and it worked. So we repeat the bridge and we do the F major 9 and the E7 sharp 9, and that leads us back to the beginning theme seamlessly. We go back to the theme after the bridge. And then he throws in a, those chords are C diminished, C completely diminished 7, and this acts as a dominant to C sharp minor, right? And so we have it's basically just a fill, just to change things up. Now we go back to that descending line. In the beginning it was 4, 3, 2, 1. Into the bridge it was 4, 3, and then flat 3, or G in this case. In this case, it's going to keep on going more. It's going to be A, G sharp, G, F sharp, F. All the while he's playing with the B on top. Now in this section, we are going to move on to discuss the introduction before the beat section and the outro after the beat section. You can tell that both sections hint at the theme in the beat section that we just looked at, while creatively using clustered chords, inversions of extended chords, and Robert Glasper style voice leading between non-related key centers. Rob Araujo was kind enough to send over the original MIDI files used in the final version of Home. Thanks, Rob. So we can look at the exact notes that Rob used for the intro and the outro. So let's play the introduction section. Alright, let's look at the first 3 chords. At first glance, that first chord looks ambiguous, but by knowing what's ahead in the beat section theme, we can deduce that this is some version of A major 7 or A major 9. It's implied at least. Look at this cluster. It's essentially an E major scale with all of its notes played simultaneously, just missing a B. The next chord is a B pentatonic voicing, or B major add 6. Here it implies a G sharp minor or an E major over G sharp sound. Again, Now that we know what's ahead harmonically in the beat section. The next chord is a straightforward F sharp minor 9 voicing with no fifth, which is a C sharp, and the ninth, which is a G sharp, and that is next to 1 and 3, F sharp and A, respectively. Now for the next couple of chords. Similar ideas here that Rob expands upon melodically and harmonically. The first chord, as we've encountered it before, an E major scale cluster, and it's followed by a G sharp minor pentatonic or B major pentatonic chord, however you want to look at that. What's next is an ambiguous chord that is a little bit more difficult to label, but that's okay because we're currently in a texture of chord clusters, and sometimes there's not a nice and easy label. We could say it belongs to A Lydian or C sharp minor 11 or E major 9. So here's where it gets interesting. We start off with a chord related to our current tonal area, which is E major, A Lydian, and modulate nicely to a relatively darker tonality, and then back home. For the first two chords, we connect via the common note E. We go from A major 9 to F sharp major 9 sharp 11. The E is key. I mean, yeah, it is the home key, but it is the key note that slides us seamlessly from A Lydian tonality to F Lydian tonality. This is such a neo soul sound. Great neo soul R&B artists can ride on these two chords all day. Now that we're in F Lydian, we can jump to C major 7 relatively easily. And from C major 7, we can use the top note B to connect us to A major 9. Nice. Once again, this is a neo soul sound. The contrast between the two keys is like the example in the beat section, the 2-5-1 neo soul turnaround. It's all relative. The effect you get switching between two tonalities a minor third apart depends on your context. Like earlier, the brightness/darkness of expectation versus reality. Okay, so let's move on. First two chords. Okay, similar to what we've already seen. We jump to C major 7 and step down to B minor 7 and then run into a chord we haven't seen yet. A G sharp augmented with a sharp 9 moving down to a flat 9. One could argue that this chord is like a G sharp dominant 7 with the sharp 9, sharp 5, acting as a dominant a half step above a target tonic chord of G major, add 2. If you didn't understand that, don't worry. I mean, I'll cover topics like these in later videos. It's just one possible point of view from functional jazz harmony theory. And so in F major 9, sharp 11 follows the G major add 2, and we finish near the home key with a B pentatonic sound. This particular chord shows us that we are back home just with a little bite. It's B pentatonic inverted as it's over a D sharp, and the bite comes from the A sharp in the lower part of the chord combined with the highest note, B natural, a minor 9th up. This is sustained to ease us into the beginning of the beat section. Cool, so that's the first part. Now let's look at the second part, which is the outro after the beat section, and we can already see some similarities happening. The first three chords are like the opening chords we've encountered previously. You know, you have an E major scale cluster, an E major 7 chord cluster, and an F sharp minor 9 cluster. Again, here we have the E major scale cluster and a B pentatonic cluster in two voicings, here and here. We then use the common note modulating technique to switch from B pentatonic to C major 7. Common notes B and A take us back to the A Lydian tonal center and then to a chord we haven't seen yet in the introduction nor in the outro, a diminished chord. The diminished chord is voiced similarly to how the major 7th chords have been voiced so far, namely third inversion where the major 7th of the chord is the first note. Look at that similarity. Great voice leading, and as a bonus, it's acting as a dominant with tension to lead to E major 7. But instead of that particular voice leading, Rob does this in E major 9. We then finish with one last statement of the main theme and these simpler chords an octave lower. And that last chord, oh so gentle. The D major, add 9, add 6, sharp 11, or D Lydian. And this voicing is a must to learn if you're looking to learn any particular voicings. This is a go-to. It's full, it's rich, it's thick. Oh, yeah. So that is it for today. Thanks a lot to Rob Araujo who made this detailed analysis possible. Please check out his stuff on Instagram if you haven't already, and I hope you guys enjoyed this glimpse into the workings of a modern artist with great taste and harmony. If you like more content like this, make sure to like and subscribe to this channel for more harmony. And by the way, the goal is to discuss harmony in use over many genres and not just neo soul or R&B. There's so much to learn and talk about, but for now, that's all. Be sure to hit me up on Instagram and Twitter, and I'll be seeing you next time.